ours. Canada, the true north, strong and free. This is how it is supposed to be. But our nation sits on land that was stolen. So how is it that the thieves have control in this country?
That when our Indigenous brothers and sisters welcomed us with open arms, we took their kindness and gave them firearms. Without their knowledge of the land, we would not have been able to survive. Yet now we thrive and let them die, as if we owe them nothing.
Who is to say our practices and culture are the only way one can live? For decades, we forced our culture upon them, silenced the beat of their drum, without once stopping to question whether the natures of our gestures are acceptable.
Put them in residential schools, force them to abide by unfair rules. In what world is separating a child from their family deemed acceptable, where they became susceptible to abuse and disease? No country who prides itself on being free would allow the sole motive of a school to be, kill the Indian in the child.
There is nowhere to hide when the country you were born in is committing cultural genocide, and it's against you. What do you do when you've lost everything you've known, your own language you've outgrown, and you feel like an outcast? Your own people have turned their backs. The monsters who took you away from your culture have trained and beaten it out of you since your departure, and now you're lost in an in-between. Your life should be only just beginning. You're 18, but you have nowhere to go.
Raising children in this toxic environment forced their native tongue to go silent, turning to drugs and alcohol to cope with the villain, passing down the abusive cycle to their children. This trauma that we cause has passed through generations. We have destroyed an entire nation, yet there is nothing being done. You would think that we would learn from our horrible mistakes, do whatever it takes to repair the broken relationship.
It doesn't stop there. We still live in a Canada where Native women go missing and the authorities don't seem to care, where the environmental racism is in the form of pipelines, entangling the lungs of our earth like toxic vines, destroying the communities who reside around them, where somehow it's okay to turn a sacred burial ground into a golf course. We show not a single shred of remorse for what we've done.
Somehow, the government thinks they have found a solution by secluding Indigenous communities far away from society as if they were pollution, claiming they have given back pieces of land in the form of reserves, as if to say that's all they deserve. Yet they can't even call that home because they do not even own this land. The conditions are barely livable. No clean water and poor education are unforgivable.
This should be publicized, but our government sits high on its throne of lies. The Maritimes are bound by the peace and friendship treaties, yet we continue to encroach on their culture like a form of diabetes. While these treaties contain no monetary or land transfer provisions, it was a guaranteed decision. Hunting, fishing, and land use rights for the descendants of the Indigenous signatories would be included in Canada's historical stories. The peace and friendship treaties remain in effect today, but we don't give that truth the time of day.
The suicide rates in Indigenous communities continue to climb. It is about time to give them a voice. We continue to make a choice to push their concerns to the side while we live comfortably in an abundance of privilege. Systematic racism supports Eurocentric culture and allows theirs to be pillaged.
As settlers, we are all responsible to educate ourselves on those issues. This isn't a sob story for you to bring out your tissues. Know that the land you live on is stolen. Know that by not doing anything, you are part of the problem. Make the conscious decision each and every day to remind yourself that there are people in your own country who will not have access to the same privileges.
As settlers, we cannot create a solution. It must be a process of inclusion. A mutual respect must be conceived in order for decolonization to be achieved. For generations, we have oppressed the people who have blessed us with the place we call home. It is time for them to feel at home. Time they feel like society has finally grown. Time to hear what they have to say. And not only listen to their way, but act. Because long ago, the settlers made a pact. Now the bond has been broken. And they have spoken. So we must hear what they are saying and cut the act of portraying.
All Canadians are free.